all-natural being. Warning, all-natural being with Brian Brawdy is designed to shake your sense of self to the core.
It's full contact psychology with an empowering twist, a philosophical loofah for your soul.
For those of you not ready or comfortable releasing your inner superhuman, listener discretion is advised.
Here's your host,
Brian Brawdy.
Welcome to All Natural Being, the live version of All Natural Being, the website, where we are passionately dedicated. Bob, I was saying we are wholeheartedly committed to one thing, the listener, you.
Oh.
Not the watered-down version, the inauthentic, the follow-the-herd you. We're talking about the real you, the true you, the all-natural you. Because the only key, the one and only key to personal happiness, spiritual fulfillment, and professional success is to recall, revive, and release your inner superhuman once and for all. So welcome. Bob, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. It's early.
It is early. And you know what? In addition to being early, it's like 50 degrees colder than it was just about 48 hours ago.
Yeah, I'm welcome to spring. It's here.
Well, here at the Metropolitan Co-working Space
Absolutely.
and the home of 14 Blends
Yep.
in beautiful Aurora, Illinois, where we're broadcasting from. You know, on the drive in this morning, it made me think of the last time I was a place even 50 degrees colder than here. 50 degrees colder this morning's temperature, and I was backcountry skiing in Yellowstone.
Wow.
So I don't know if the listeners know this, but every morning when I get in bright and early, I go ahead and create the early morning meme. I put it up on Facebook. So I use the drive-in to kind of get my head in the game, right? I do my own early morning meme thinking, what are we going to talk about today? So this morning, thinking back to 50 degrees colder, the last time I was in Yellowstone, well below zero, backcountry skiing, snow, just feet. It just piles up in feet. When the bison go to move around, when the buffalo go to move around, they pick with a game trail, right? They pick a path so that they don't have to fight the deepest snows. So they create a rut in the snow. So as the first bison moves through, then the second and the third and the fourth, it creates a path in the snow because they don't want to have to battle in the drifts, right? Because it takes energy to move around.
Sure.
So I started thinking how the mind works the same way as a bison herd, right? Or as an individual bison. It wants to stick to a routine. It wants to get to something, and it wants to keep doing that over and over again because it's easier than trailblazing. It's easier than fighting snowdrifts or deeper snows, trying to pull itself through, the unknown. So it likes to stick to a routine. So our early morning meme for today is do your mind a favor. Send your autopilot to time out. Wake up and shelve the routine. Just for a little bit this morning. Don't do your normal routine because your mind digs the new. Your neurons, the very neurons responsible, the rivets of your mind, if you will, they dig deep snow. They dig going off the beaten path. They dig being a trailblazer. So when it comes to routine, just for a little bit this morning, abandon it. If you're going to drive to work, drive a different way. If you're going to watch a particular morning show, maybe watch a different one. If you're going to listen to us, maybe put us on the phone, take us in. I had someone say the other day they were listening while they were brushing their teeth.
Oh, nice.
It's very nice of them. So take us. We're mobile, right?
Right.
But
Absolutely.
The theme of this morning's show is get rid of your routines. Just for a little while, and I promise you, your mind will be your own best friend.
You say about the get rid of the routine. The question is how do you do that? Because people are so routine. Like, what's the best way to get rid of? Just to do something different, or?
Well, no. Right off the bat is to give yourself permission that if it ever feels uncomfortable, if it ever feels a little different, it's going to. But if it feels dramatically uncomfortable, give yourself permission to fall back in your routine. Right? We've said before, this isn't cold turkey. We're not throwing a baby out with the bathwater. But, and we'll get into it a little later about 20-minute victories and exactly, what we have to do to incorporate those in our day. And also what we can do to scale them, right? So we can stack 20-minute victories. But whenever it comes to getting into battling a routine, do it in baby steps. Remember the movie with Bill Murray
Yeah.
What you should. The name of the movie is What About Bob?
What About
right?
Bob?
He's
Yes.
got his hands pinned behind his back, and he's on the mast right on the boat. I'm sailing.
Right.
So Baby Steps, I think, was the name of.
I think that was the name of the
Travis's
book.
Baby Steps. So when it comes to abandoning your routine, teeny tiny baby steps, right? Because one. You make sure you got your sea legs. Make sure you've got, from the movie as well, make sure you got good footing as you do it.
Right.
And then we progressively adapt, so that as we adapt, it becomes more and more something that we know we can handle and give ourselves permission to push on even further, just like the bison. Right. And that's something in Yellowstone, because we would use those trails whenever we could, right? Because we didn't want to be pulling through the deep snow. You come across those bison head on, you better move. Speaking of those trails, you want to get off those trails because they're going to stick in their rut no matter what. And we're not big enough to make them go, oh, well, that guy's pretty big looking on those skis. I better go ahead and move into the deep snow. But we're smarter than that. We're human beings. So get out of your routine. Get out of the rut. Be a trailblazer. Get into the deep snow of your mind. And you're gonna have a much mentally, right? In terms of the neuroscience of it, a much better experience.
Can I add on something
Sure,
on that?
go right ahead.
When I drive around, visit clients and all that stuff, I typically try to drive in different directions to find new customers or things of that nature. So that's really interesting because you mentioned earlier, drive in a different direction or go in different locations.
Sure.
So it helps.
Well, because the mind, we know now about neuroplasticity. Right, and as the show proceeds, we'll get into a good bit more detailed report. Some of the critiques we got over the first couple of days is that they want some of the different science. They want some of the websites. So we're just kind of like ramping ourselves up, right? We were here late last night figuring out how the new studio is going to be put together and doing some other things. So I should throw out a quick thank you to Jason and Matt for coming down to 14 Blends and helping us every day get a little better than we were the day before.
Absolutely.
So when it comes to doing something different, asking people to do something different, we're going to start supporting it with websites, so you just don't have to take our word for it. You can go out and check it. So that's going to be a part of what we're going to add to the show.
Gotcha.
But for right now, this morning, the benefit of abandoning a routine, of sending the commonplace in your life to time out, is we're only asking you to do it 20 minutes at a time. Like when you say you drive to a different client, sometimes it's great for your mind to be on autopilot, right? There are just some things that's pretty cool. But in other times, in order for your mind, in order for your all-natural being, your cutting-edge mind to kick in, it wants to be challenged. It's like any other muscle in the body. It wants to be challenged. It wants to be something new. So that's why today we're going to kick around this concept of routines and why, every so often, we should abandon them and then see where we end up because we did.
All right, I love it.
All right, my friend, anything else new that you wanted to kick around before we get started with the rest of our show here this morning?
Well, we got a new phone number.
Great.
Can I talk
for
about
people
that?
that want to text us or
Yeah.
Okay, groovy. What is that?
It is 331-684-SOUL, or if you're not real good with the spelling, it's 7685.
So 331-684-7685.
Yep.
331-684-7685. You want to give us a text? Maybe you can give us a critique, or we can answer some questions. We can do some things along that line. What do you think?
I think that's really exciting.
I was saying in the open that we want to talk about personal happiness, spiritual fulfillment, right? And a big topic these days is professional success.
Yeah.
And it's my belief after 30 years now of studying what it takes to optimize human potential, right? Your potential, what it takes to be the best that you can be, to bring everything to the game. You want to always focus on recalling, reviving, right? And releasing your inner superhuman. Now, I don't mean for this to be any self-help hooey, right? This isn't any pseudo-spirituality or, just kind of some weird blend of science and spirituality. What I'm absolutely suggesting is that at your core, at your authentic core, underneath all the things that have been piled on you, you have the ability to pull off almost anything, right? And a lot of times, Bob, our limitations are perceived, right? There's something we conjure up in our minds in advance. Now, you're absolutely right to say, well, I couldn't fly to the moon if I wanted to, or I'm 65 years old, I'm not going to run a sub 8-minute mile. There are some limitations that are hard limitations, right? There's a shelf. There's just some things we're not able to pull off. But a vast majority of the limitations are perceived limitations. And we perceive them as limitations because of our routines. We've gotten into a rut, and we believe because I haven't pulled it off in the past, I won't be able to pull it off now. Because I've settled for a less than optimal relationship in the past, there's no way for me to change that now. Because I've allowed myself to kind of, right, just like any other muscle,
right.
You have a little bit of apathy, right? Because of apathy, your muscle starts to atrophy, right? Just as if it was in a cast. And then with that atrophy comes the amnesia we were talking about, the blind spots, the brainwashing, convincing yourself that you can't tap, right? You can't recall, revive, and release your inner superhuman. It's in there. And I know if you're listening to my voice, there are times when you know it is, and then the mind's entourage kicks in, right?
Sure.
Right? The little crawl spaces in our mind where we go, oh, you could never do that. Brian's just crazy. That doesn't apply to you. It applies to other people, but not you. Mm-hmm. And I'm here to tell you that's simply not true. May not be able to flap your arms and fly to the moon, but most of the limitations that you have were given to you, you accepted them, and then you codified them, right? You made them a part of your life. And that's what we're going to talk about this morning is don't buy into it. Don't buy into the head games. Enough head games. Well, remember who you are and bring your A game.
Well, let me say something here, because you say you can't flap your arms and go to the moon.
I can't.
I mean, I definitely have way too much mass to do that. That said, I'll say you could go to the moon.
Right. Well, that's a great point. People say, you read some of the self-help authors and some of the other people that are out there writing this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, you can pull off anything. That's the pseudo-spirituality I'm talking about, because you can't. You just can't.
You
just can't. No wells. You just can't.
With SpaceX, they're doing flights to the moon.
Has SpaceX gotten anyone into outer space yet? Not slamming the people at SpaceX. Has one human being been to outer space?
I thought they sent some people, or they sent some stuff.
Okay, great. But can you flap your arms?
No, not me.
Get to the moon?
I can't do that, but there are ways to get to the moon if you want to get to the moon.
For the average person, unless you're an astronaut, you were born with the right stuff, right? When I was a little kid, maybe a lot of guys out there listening, maybe some women out there listening as well. When you were little, you wanted to be an astronaut.
Sure.
It took me till probably 6th or 7th grade to realize my stuff wasn't the right stuff, right? So I wasn't getting to the moon.
Right.
The point I'm trying to make is here's what happens
Yeah.
with some of the self-help industry tactics. People say, oh, you can pull off anything. And then when you don't do it, you don't blame the author that said to you, oh, you can pull off literally anything, right? It's not grounded in reality.
Sure.
You look in the mirror and you blame yourself. Well, if I really can pull off anything and I failed here, and then people inculcate that, right? They take that in, they own it, they adopt it. And that's why I'm not a fan of the extremes of all these different things. Oh, you can pull off anything. You can, just try and you can do it all. Well, we can't. I can't do it all.
Right.
I can't do it all.
That's
so
true.
what I'd rather focus on is recalling, reviving, and releasing those natural resources in me that allow me to use my authentic superhuman in a way that's dialed in just for me. And of course, as always, ignoring all your critics, ignoring the people that say, well, don't try, sit on the couch, you'll be uncomfortable if you do it, you'll never pull it off. Ignore them, tap into your natural resources, and channel your inner superhuman.
I get that, absolutely. How do you do that? How do you tap into those things there?
Well, I would say, as we talked about with baby steps and the 20-minute victories. And I think maybe today, because the most tweets, the most emails, the most commentary over the last 2 days was how do you specifically do a 20-minute victory?
Right.
And we talk about on the website 20-minute
absolutely.
excellence. How you can have excellence in the next 20 minutes. 1/72 of your day. Not suggesting you go hog wild, as we used to say growing up. Don't go hog wild, but
when
how
there's
can
a
you
buffet.
segment it out? So let's do this. Let's run to our quick little break.
Yeah, let's go to a break.
And then we'll come back and we'll talk about that in depth.
Sounds perfect.
And your heart.
Well, that'll work just great. I'll tell you there, Bob, I'm still learning this slider. So when you talk about 20-minute victories, what can I do for the next 20 minutes to get better than I was 20 minutes ago? Focus on.
Yeah.
It would be to pay attention to that slider so that when I actually put out audio, So imagine that you heard this really cool voice going, welcome to All Natural Big with private audio, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, I'm a rookie.
The audience will forgive you.
Hey, well, it's like my third show, so I'm still learning. So let's get on to 20-minute victories.
All right.
And then just give me like a hand signal. Remind me of the slider later. Riding like there ain't no clown, right? Isn't that what Garth Brooks says?
Absolutely.
All right, so here's the deal. 20-minute victory. Everyone's like, well, how do I do it?
Yeah.
What is it specifically?
Be like Missouri and show me.
Oh, there you go. You do it how it feels best for you. You set aside 20 minutes and go, okay, here's this. Maybe you set your timer on your phone. You watch the clock. Wherever your schedule is, set a timer so you know you're not going to go over. Because believe me, you're going to get into this and you are going to go over. So in the very beginning, set yourself a timer. And you say, what's something you've always wanted to do? What's something that's challenged you that you think is insurmountable? Just pick a particular topic or a train of thought or something in your mind that you've wanted either to give up or to accomplish, right? And I like the idea of using accomplishment more than giving up, right? Because we talked about yesterday, I like this idea of attending. You don't necessarily have a goal, but you're tending towards a particular outcome, right? You're having an adventure, not an expedition where you go, I want to end up at X on the map, but for 20-minute victories, I have I have a general idea of what I want to do. So imagine you're at home. Something will happen in that 20 minutes. A thought will come. A feeling will come. A sound will come. Carl Jung talks about, all kinds of people talk about it now, but the original term was synchronicity or a serendipity, chance, a fortuitous event. I believe in what I call the fingerprints of providence, and that success, what you need to do for your personal happiness, spiritual fulfillment, and professional success. In this moment, in this labyrinth, there's a fingerprint of providence. There's a cairn. If you're used to hiking in the backcountry, when they stack the stones up so that when you see them, you know that you're on the right path.
Oh, yeah.
There's a cognitive cairn, a fingerprint left behind by the divine, however you define it, left behind that tells you what your next steps are going to be. So it may be a thought, it may be a feeling, it may be an outside sound. Then you go with it. No holds barred. No worries, no concerns, not what are other people going to think about me, not what are the negative chances if I follow this for the next minute. And then it's like a big scavenger hunt, Bob. Imagine being in the labyrinth, you find one clue, and it leads you to your next clue, and then your next little hint, next little pointer here and there, left, right, up, down, swerve, pivot, right? But what happens is when we set our sights on goals, we have tunnel vision, right? And we just want to put our heads down, kind of like the bison, right? In Yellowstone, and just plow through. If you're the first bison making the trail after a heavy storm, you just want to plow through that snow and get to the point where you have a trail where you can be more comfortable.
Right.
All I'm suggesting is when that happens within the space of that 20-minute victory, give yourself permission. Give yourself the opportunity to go, all right, I'll try that, and see where you end up. Now, one of my favorite things to do, it's just one of the things that makes Brian weird. I love being like at a grocery store or a library, anywhere where there's a magazine rack. And it's been my experience, you'll find a particular word, a phrase, a title, something that compels you on to the next clue. And it's been, again, my experience, and the experience of countless other people that I've interviewed over the 30 years, that these synchronicities exist. These fortuitous chances are absolutely there, but we get so busy, or tunnel vision, we get so focused on what the end goal is going to be, right? We talked yesterday about happiness underlying all the static. We get so focused, we don't see the clues right under our noses, right under our feet. And I will tell you, as my initial training as a criminal investigator, when you go to a crime scene, clues are left behind. And if you don't find them, it's not the scene's fault, it's your fault for not having the acuity, not being sharp enough in the moment. Throw some fingerprint powder around, Look to see if there was any fibers. Look to see if there are boot prints, tire prints, right? Anything else you can do. Same with fingerprints of provenance. In the 20-minute victory, something will happen. Something will hit, and you'll be going like, yes, that's the clue. That's the part of the scavenger hunt. And then you move on to the next baby step. And just see where the adventure takes you. How's that feel?
That feels interesting, and I think I understand what you're trying to do and what you're trying to explain. I just don't. I'm not sure. I mean, how do you So you say kind of just either quiet your mind or just
Well, here that's a great point. Can I just kind of expand on that for a little bit? Everyone says, "Oh, the big thing now is meditation.
Yeah.
The big thing now is mindfulness." But what they don't tell you is your mind is built to wander. So when I hear people say, "Oh, quiet your mind," I want you to quiet the static, the attachment that your mind has to outside stimuli, maybe even some inside stimuli. But why? People say, "Well, I sat in meditation and every time a thought came up, I tried to ignore it." Why would you do that? It's what minds do. Minds are designed to think, the wanderlust, the exploration, that sense of adventure. Now, you don't want the monkey brain that they talk about in Buddhism. You don't want the chatterdom that we talk about where your mind just races.
Right.
But the more you practice, the better you'll get at realizing we're talking about the all-natural being that kind of sits back from the chatter of the mind. It's that part of you that witnesses where the mind runs. That's the part that gets to decide what it pays attention to. That's the part, allegedly, that everyone wants to quiet. It's the observer of all the thoughts. That's why I call it cutting-edge mindfulness. Because this concept, you hear all the time, well, go out into the wilderness, climb up onto a mountain and sit there and meditate. Right? Sounds beautiful. Go out, get away from all the distraction. And I've been doing it for 30 years. If you can't go down, let's pick the city of Chicago, on the elevated platform, let's say at Fullerton.
Okay.
5 o'clock, Friday afternoon, 1 billion people running around, hustling, bustling, trying to get to the train, trying to get home, trying to kick off their weekend. If you can't sit there or stand there and quiet all the outside din and static, then you don't know how to meditate. Anyone can go off into a mountain and go, well, let me see if I can go ahead and quell all the outside static. But then you ask them, well, what about the sound of the running stream? What about the sound of this or that? If you can't do it on the L track, Friday afternoon, 5 o'clock, everyone moving in around you, you don't have cutting-edge mindfulness. You need to be able to, and we, again, progressively adapt. How do we do it? Baby steps. One little bit at a time. Because like any other muscle in your body, you got to practice this. I'm not going to say that, and there are times where I'm not excellent at it, right? And I kind of think, all right, what's going on? Back myself back again. Pay attention to what it is my all-natural being is focusing on. What is it paying attention to? What is it that the mind is sending to it? Decide what it'll focus on, and over the remaining portion of that 20 minutes, how can I use that, right, to revive and release my all-natural being, my superhuman status that we talk about all the time.
I like it. Sounds interesting.
Okay, well, think about any other situation throughout the day where you go, oh, you know what? That was just so fortuitous. Or people go, can you believe I bumped into that person? I'll tell you a quick story before we get to the bottom of the hour. I was studying a couple years ago the in-depth operation of the human brain. Right? I had gotten a plastic model of the brain, and I was reading, at the time, probably 3 or 4 books, as I normally do. When I get into a book, I try to get other authors that, kind of corroborate. It's still the ex-cop in me,
sure,
or the old cop in me.
Yeah.
Try to corroborate what it's saying. So I pack up my book, I head out to the airport in Denver, and my flight is canceled. So they reroute me to another flight, what is it?
Terminal.
And reroute me to another terminal, another gate.
Oh, yeah.
So I was going to say hutch. I don't know where my mind is. Right? Talk about quieting the chatterdom in your mind. They rerouted me to another gate. So I wait in line. There's a guy right in front of me. So I break up a little bit of conversation, and he gets through, I get through. I leave the counter, and I go and I sit. Now, since I kind of know him now, we've been yucking it up in line, I sit next to him. I pull out one of the books. I open the book, and there's a picture of like a CAT scan of her brain. Now, I was supposed to be on a different flight, different airline, different gate. Never should have been behind this guy in line. But you know me, I'll talk to anybody. So,
Sure.
so
Absolutely.
I guess that part isn't all that strange. But the guy is a neuroscientist. And he looks over at what I'm reading in the book and goes, "What are you doing? Who reads that kind of book?" And I flip the cover and he goes, "Oh, I know the author of that book." That's the synchronicity I'm talking about. No reason I should have come in contact with him. Matter of fact, his name was Bob. No reason I should have come in contact with him. No reason we should have struck up a conversation. But that in that moment, I'm studying and I need help from someone a lot smarter than I am, like a neuroscientist.
Right.
I open the book, having sat next to him, he recognizes the picture, recognizes the book, and we spend like the next hour, him kind of like coaching me through the things that just weren't clicking for me, right? That's the type of synchronicity that I'm talking about. And if you have a synchronicity, we got to try this out, I would think. If you have an example of synchronicity that we can talk about, go ahead and send us a text at 331-684-SOUL, or like Bobby says to remind you, 331-684-7685. Bob, before we run to the bottom of the hour, how about you? You have an experience that jumps to mind when I say that where you're like, there's no way this could have gone down the way it did without it being a fingerprint of providence?
You know, there's a lot of different experiences, but the one that comes to mind is kind of maybe with the film festival.
Okay.
That's one. I talked with one guy. We were talking a little bit, and then another lady came along and said, "Oh, I know a little bit about film festivals and stuff like that, and I'd like to participate and stuff." So kind of grew from there, and just different people.
All right, so different people. So
kinda,
you could represent, that's a good point. You could represent an individual that you bump into if you're out and about.
Yep.
You could represent them as a fingerprint of providence.
Yeah.
Right? As a cognitive cairn.
Yeah.
As a tip, a clue, a tangent. You know, something that tells you, okay, here's where I am right now. Like hopscotch. Right? Here's where I am right now. What am I going to do to the leap to the next one? And you're only doing this for 20 minutes, right?
Right.
So you don't have to be like me and just adopt a full lifestyle of wanderlust where I never know where I'm going to be in the next moment. But for 20 minutes, give yourself the permission to try this. And why I'm so confident, people go, well, how are you sure that's going to work? Because I know once you start to reconnect, literally recognize your inner superhuman, your all-natural being. It's like when they create tunnels, right? You tunnel from one side of the mountain, you tunnel from the other side of the mountain, and you hope to meet in the middle.
Sure.
When you start to do this, you know that one quote from the Scottish Himalayan expedition that says, "The moment one commits, all providence moves to." All sorts of events, seen and unseen, begin to dovetail in support of the person that brings their grit, that brings their passion, that brings their all-natural being. So that's what, I'm kind of referencing.
No, I absolutely agree with that, because you got to commit to whatever the idea is. And when people say, "Oh, how do you know it's going to work?" or yeah, you're right. You don't know if it does or doesn't. And if it doesn't, you get to say,
You've
"At least I
invested 20
tried."
minutes.
Yeah.
You've invested 1/72 of your day. All right, I want to do this. We did get, it's kind of my fault. I wouldn't think of it. Talking about having your mind go in one way.
Sure.
Soul is spelled S-O-U-L. So the soul, the superhuman that we're kind of referencing. So if you want to send us a text, please do so. 331-684-SOUL or 7685. All right, so here we go. Let's give this a shot, Bobby. Let's see if I can pull off this bottom of the hour. And we will be right back.
You're listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy. Because it's never too late to take your life back.
All right, Bobby, what do you think about that? I think that slider worked pretty good.
Thank
you very much. All right, 331-684-SOUL. We're talking kind of like the theme of today, thinking back to when I was in Yellowstone, why your mind digs ruts, why it digs routines. And in some cases, it makes sense, right? Like if you have a routine, you're getting up in the morning, you got to get yourself out the door. You get out of bed, you put on your slippers, I'm assuming you go and brush your teeth or you comb your hair. I'm told people do that.
Yeah, I was going to say, how much hair
Yeah. That'll comb my hair. But, you do what your routine is. We're not suggesting that you abandon that. I'm saying for 20 minutes, let the fingerprints of Providence through. Let them pierce through like a lighthouse in the fog. Let them pierce through the normal static in your mind and just see what the universe has in store for you. See what the moment, I call it magnify the moment. What does it have for you? What are the clues? What are the tips? What are the secrets that it has for you?
Well, when you say the 20-minute victories, this may be an image I don't want to post out there, but
you're going to, right?
I'm going to.
You don't want to. You don't want
I'm
to.
going to have to.
All right. So this is the part where I say the views expressed by Bob are not necessarily mine, just as my own safety net.
I get a lot of executives, a lot of entrepreneurs. We talk, and in that morning time when you shower,
right?
You clean your body and whatnot, right. And a lot of ideas come there. And I don't know, there was a couple years ago, I don't know if you saw this in the Super Bowl, there was a commercial where this high-end executive brings his entire executive staff in the shower, all clothed, not, and they're like, sir, what are we doing in here? He goes, well, this is where I get my best ideas.
And that's great, because that's such a great point, Bob. Thank you for bringing that up. When it hits.
Yeah.
Right? If you look I have a shower that has a glass wall. And I'll be writing things, like in the steam on the glass wall if something comes to me.
Oh.
But an even deeper part of the point you bring up is that sometimes we can set the 20-minute victories. Sometimes they're impromptu, right? You can be out doing something and a thought will hit. You'll see something, you'll hear something, you'll feel something. Maybe it's a smell that takes you back to some time in your life. And then the 20-minute victory begins. In the beginning, to practice, you set the schedule of your 20-minute victory. But then give yourself permission. You might be out and about through the normal, right? The normal everyday advances of your day. And then something hits you. You have to be able, and that's why there's a difference between a rabbit hole, right? When people talk about, going down the rabbit hole, a rabbit hole and a pigeonhole. Don't pigeonhole yourself. Give yourself permission. When that rabbit hole presents itself, you got to be able to run. You got to be able to go, right? You want that flexibility. And you will grow in courage. You'll grow in flexibility. Like, imagine if we said we were going to do a calisthenics routine. And in 5 minutes, I wanted to be able to teach someone to bend over and touch their toes. You'd rip every muscle out of your low back and your hamstrings if you've been tight and if you haven't done it in a few years.
Sure.
So what do you do if you want a stretching routine?
Practice.
And practice what? Little bits. The baby steps, right? And you get a little better at stretching. If you're taking a yoga class or you're in athletics, or even if you wake up with a stiff muscle, you don't just rank your hand over your head and go, I just did my own chiropractic adjustment, right? You do it nice and easy and slowly. And you build in that sense of suppleness. Or you return, I guess is even a better way. You return that sense of suppleness to the muscle. Same with your mind. So as you start these out, you're not going to be able to mentally touch your toes. If you can't right now, give yourself permission. It's okay. This is a brand new gig. For a lot of people, asking them to abandon their goal setting. Asking them, it's really something when you first meet with a client, you're working with them, you go, I don't want to hear about your hopes. I don't want to hear about your dreams. I don't want to hear about your goals. I don't hear about, what was it, Carl Sandburg that says hope. It is an echo that ties you yonder, right? You're never happy. Well, I'm hoping to get down the road. No. Abandon all hope. Abandon all goals. Abandon all dreams. And for 20 minutes, what if the divine were trying to send you a text, send you a voicemail, send you a clue as to what you need to do, right? What if your inner superhuman is trying to communicate with you, going, look, everyone's looking for a sign, right? But I think it was Winston Churchill. It says, everyone wants the truth, but most times they'll find it, trip over it, fall, and get up and keep right on running. I think it was Churchill, right? So everyone, I would need a sign. I think you get like 100 signs a minute because your inner superhuman wants out. Your all-natural being, it doesn't want you unhappy. It doesn't want you unsuccessful. It doesn't want you sad. It doesn't want you to be a couch potato. It's here to exercise its natural resources. It's here to exercise its grit, right? It's here to go into the moment hot. to light it up, right?
Right.
To light it up. It doesn't want to be put on the back shelf. It doesn't want to sit back. But you got to give yourself permission, and it's cool to do, right? Just like a golf swing. You can't pick up a golf club for the first time in your life, hit a fairway, get to the green in regulation, and birdie the hole. You got to practice. It's the same thing with 20-minute excellence, 20-minute victories, right? Because you put those 20-minute victories, you can stack them. They're scalable. But in the very beginning, whether you're planning the 20-minute or it's impromptu, give yourself permission to try something. Be flexible. Learn something new. And if at any time in the 20 minutes you decide it's too much, then tap out. Right? There's nothing that says if you start, Brian said it's got to be a full 20 minutes. Don't listen to Brian. Listen, here's the thing. I'm in a unique position because I want everyone to listen to me, and then I want to say, ignore everything I say. Right? I can imagine people going, oh, great, Brian, why don't you write a book and lead with that tagline? Hey, I got a lot of cool stuff to say in the book, but ignore everything I say.
Right.
Because here's the beauty of it. If you just try this for me, 20 minutes, you're going to feel this. It's going to grab your spine. Viscerally, you're going to be able to tell that you're right. That in this little instant, I'm right. That when you tap, right, drilling for oil, you hit that superhuman, you hit that all-natural being, and it'll start to gush out. If you're a little scared, right, we're all a little timid, if we're not accustomed to it, give yourself baby steps. Right? Can't bend over and touch your toes if you haven't in 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Give yourself permission. Go nice and slow, but never give up the wanderlust. Because if gratitude, we said yesterday that gratitude is the grease for your brain, then the fuel is wanderlust. Think about it. You referenced the moon earlier. You hear people say all the time, oh, humans are all about the adventure. We're going to go off to the moon, then we're going to go to Mars and this and that. Humanity might very well be that way. But humanity is a collection of one human mind at a time. A human mind was born, is built for adventure. It's not built for routine. It's not built for a rut. And the beautiful thing about this, I got a text yesterday, and we have a whole host of people that I just want to mention and thank before we go at the end of the show. Right. People that reached out and gave some suggestions and some other things. But someone said, well, I'm in a really bad relationship. And I go, okay, well, how have you progressed so far in terms of your all-natural being? Well, I haven't done any of that. Okay, so what part of you is in this bad relationship? It's not the authentic part of you. It's not your superhuman. I can tell you right now it's not your all-natural being. Because when you hone that, right, as we talked about before, when you recall, revive, and release your inner superhuman, then you're playing with a full deck, right? You're out confronting the labyrinth. You're out searching for the fingerprints of providence. You're out looking for those cognitive cairns. You're putting your neurons through their natural paces with adventure. That's when you're going to find, you hear all the time about your soulmate. It was nice of someone to drive by and be. We should mention we literally are in a sidewalk build out here, so people are walking by, cars are blocking by. We're at, if you want to swing by, you're welcome to. You'll be able to get up and get the door, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We're at the Metropolitan Co-working facility, the home of 14 Blends here in downtown Aurora. If you're from Aurora, you know where it is, so stop by and check us out. But does that make sense, Bobby?
No, it absolutely does. I lost my train of thought.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. So there's another perfect example. You could be in the middle of your 20-minute victory. You lose your train of thought. Don't beat yourself up over it.
Oh.
Right? Okay. Or wait for it to come back. So before we get away from that point, people that are in questionable or relationships that don't support them, people say all the time, I'm in a very toxic relationship. Well, if you're not operating from the home base, right? Base camp of your all-natural being, from your superhuman, how can you define whether you're not a portion of that toxic relationship? Now, some are just plain out toxic, right? You're in a relationship with someone that abuses you mentally, physically, spiritually. But I'm talking about
all before 9 o'clock.
All before 9 a.m., right? And if you're in a relationship like that and you listen to this, enough. There's no reason. There's no reason to stay in that relationship. My question would be, until you work on your superhuman status, until you work on reviving and releasing your all-natural being, you're not in a position to find a soulmate, right? You're not in a position to find a soulmate. You're in a position to find the entourage mate, those places, the crawl spaces of your mind. But as far as your soul, You're not in a position to be looking for a soulmate. You're not even a soulmate to you. Your own soul is like, look, I'm here, right? I'm here to be a badass. I'm here to exercise my grit. I'm here to use my natural resources to guarantee my destiny. You're in a relationship that isn't supporting you. Start with your all-natural being. Start with your superhuman. Then you're in the right position to see who you're going to attract or who will be attracted to you. Yes?
Yeah, no. I was going to say, one of the things you said is you've got to work at it. And I think that's the problem with a lot of us. It's like, this is going to take work. What am I going to have to do? And it's like, you may have to get rid of a TV show or, whatever.
Well,
right?
I don't want to keep falling back on this and going, let me just pat myself on the back because of this concept of 20-minute victories. I'm asking you for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Technically, you're asking yourself for 20 minutes. 1/72nd of your day. If you're unhappy, I look at this all the time, like the pharmaceutical industry that I spoke of yesterday, always coming up with these syndromes, always coming up, you know what I have? When I hear IBS, it's irritable brain syndrome. That's what I want to cure, right? So if you're unhappy, you feel unfulfilled, you're sad, your life isn't firing on all cylinders, it just doesn't feel right, would you invest 1/72nd of your day to try to turn that around?
Right.
1/72nd of your day. Let me say this. If you're not worth 1/72nd of your own day, then this probably isn't for you. Right? In all fairness, if you're not worth 20 minutes, and it's scalable, so if you want to add some throughout the day, but just to kick off your day, if you're not worth 20 minutes, then this isn't for you. Right? But if you're willing to invest that smallest little chunk of time, that little fragment, to defragment your brain, to get your head firing on all cylinders, to reconnect with that sense of who you truly are. You hear all these things now. Well, it's true to, you got to find your authentic calling. If you can't find your authentic self, how do you know the call you're taking is really intended for you? And everyone wants to blame other people. Everyone wants to go, well, this person did this to me, or this person did that to me. Don't be a pincushion. Enough head games, right? Enough head games. If someone's done something to offend you, you've let it in. Thank them for their opinion and move on.
Right.
You don't buy into it. That's what I'm suggesting. That's how you do the 20-minute victories. And if you find 10 minutes in, it's time to go, then it's time to go. Give yourself a pat on the back for doing it at least for 10 minutes and say, hey, maybe tomorrow I'll try it for 11. Right? There's nothing about this that's cold turkey or throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Right. No, I understand that.
So, I was also reading a very interesting article yesterday that was talking about what people need to do to be authentic.
Okay.
Right? Because everyone wants to follow the herd, which is just a part of the routine. And I thought that was like a really wild question. What does it take to be authentic? Because the answer is, I can't tell you what it takes for Bob to be authentic, but in your heart, either when you wake up in the morning or before you fall asleep at night, outside of the static, you know what it takes to be authentic.
I think for me, to be authentic is just to be yourself,
right,
and not afraid. Now, I mean,
fair enough.
I've been married for maybe 15 years, 14 years, somewhere. Okay. I don't know. I've lost track after this point.
Do you try to get yourself in trouble, like not remembering how many years you're married? I mean,
it's a little dicey.
20-minute victory?
Yeah.
You show up in the morning and go, let me see what I can do to get locked out of the front door and have to sleep on the couch tonight?
That's why we keep the couch outside, so I can sleep under the stars. But I think
the Milky Way.
in our society, it's like, I need the newest clothes, or I need the newest car, or whatever, to kind of make myself feel good.
Right.
And if you're into that, I'm totally cool with that.
Into fashion,
that's
right.
I mean, clearly you can tell.
Yeah,
I'm wearing jeans and my company T-shirt. Right. I'm not.
Right. Well, that's because there's a difference, and we'll get to this when we come back into the next segment. Yeah. There's a difference between fashion and style. Fashion is when you try to fit in.
Oh.
Style is when you let your soul talk. How fashionable can you be if 1,000 people are showing up in a meeting with the same outfit you have, the same pair of shoes, the same this or the same that? How fashionable is that? Style is from your all-natural being. Style is from your soul, and that's what we're going to talk about a little more here when we get back right after this quick break. All right, Bobby, thanks for hanging out, man.
You're listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy. Because friends don't let friends fall for self-help industry tactics.
All right, Bobby, we're back. You know, I feel like those Olympians from yesteryear when the Russian judges, you know, I can imagine what people are going to say, Brian, can you get any better with those sliders, please? What are you doing? Like the Russian judge would give me a 5-5, right? And so
Dancing with the Stars.
Dancing with the Stars, yeah. What's a Russian judge get you? A 4. Okay, thanks. Well, I'll keep working on it. I'll get better as we go. All right, so now in this segment, we're supposed to be talking about self-help industry tactics.
Yeah.
It's a big business. All I'm suggesting, and again, we got some great comments yesterday from Patricia. We got a great comment from Tammy. We got a great comment from John. We got a great comment from Ashley and from Marcy. So I want to thank everyone for sending me the texts, the tweets, and the like. So they say, well, Brian, this self-help industry, it's helping people. My sense is there's no better help than looking in the mirror and saying, I'm done with all the mashugana. I'm done with the running around. I'm done with the chatterdom. I'm done with the, right? Chatterdom, all those people outside telling you what you should do, how you should act, where you should live, who you should be. And it's been going on since we were little. Now, nothing about this is slamming parents, right? Because when you're a little kid, you need those training wheels we talked about last Friday. You need those water wings. You need some sense of outside ability to keep afloat, to cultivate your own equilibrium. But there comes a time where you have to look at it and say, I'm going to take over the bus now. Thank you for everything you did for me. Thank you for getting me through, adolescence into adulthood. Now it's time for me to captain my own ship. Now it's time, captain or captainess. Now it's time for me to be the commander of my own boat and chart my life that way. That's the being. That's the superhuman that you see. And if you stand in the mirror and you stare at your reflection long enough, you'll start to hear that voice speak to you, that still small voice. You'll feel it intuitively, instinctively. That's the voice you should listen to.
Well, you made that comment of when you start to take your own control of your own boat. Sure. I think it was J.K. Rowling who says, I take responsibility as soon as I take control of the wheel.
There you go. Well, and that's the nice thing about responsibility. One of the things that was most empowering for me, especially immediately following my father's suicide, was that fine line of the things that you should accept responsibility for and the things that you shouldn't, right? And I was confronted with that as a real life lesson almost immediately because I felt responsible. Sure. I felt guilty for my dad having taken his own life. But you very quickly get to a point when you look into this whole concept of responsible, there's things you are responsible for, and there's some things you're just not. But in those categories, when you accept responsibility, if you're having a bad day, don't blame the day. If you find yourself in a bad situation, don't blame the situation. Because you are finding yourself in it.
Right.
If it doesn't work for you, you're out. Boogie. Get out. Underlay. Don't let the screen door catch you in the tuchus on the way out. There's another Yiddish term for my friends. Thank you very much. I just wanted to say I got a text from Parker saying, hope the show is going good. So we know that the
texting is working.
Family and friends are listening. So that's always cool. Thanks, Parker. I appreciate it. So does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it really does.
Any other situations that you can think of where you were confronted by something, impromptu or otherwise, and you were like, oh, that's synchronicity. That's like really cool that happened in this moment. It may happen out and about. You might be thinking about something at home. You go through a drawer and all of a sudden you find something that triggers in your mind exactly what your next step should be. If you have a junk drawer like I do, or you go out to the mailbox, maybe there's a piece of mail. That's the beauty of it. There's a myriad of evidence, fingerprints of provenance, left behind every minute to show us how to make it through the labyrinth. All we have to do is be a great detective. All we have to do is figure out what the evidence is, and how we can apply it. And it's a great adventure. I mean, it's a blast. When you contemplate the mystery of life, mystery of the universe, right? All these other things. To think about it unfolding in the moment. Remember the quote, all providence moves to, right? It dovetails. People listening have to have examples of when they go, yeah. And then A led to B, which led to C, which led to D. Now, here's one of the things about being in the labyrinth.
Yeah.
There's no dead ends. So you might be in the middle of your 20-minute victory. You get a few minutes into it or a few lefts, rights, ups, downs, whatever. And you think, that just didn't work. That's a cul-de-sac. It's not an excuse to quit. It's not a dead end. It just means you spin back around. Because not every bit of evidence shows you where to go. Some evidence shows you where you don't need to go.
Right.
Right? Some people say, so you're suggesting just run down the rabbit hole and let it come out the other end wherever it comes out. Not necessarily. I trust you, right? When I sign my emails or cards to people, I say, I'm on your side even when you're not.
Right.
I have total faith in your all-natural being. You're superhuman. To in that moment go, all right, we made it this far. It showed us that we don't want down this path. So we're going to use this as a U-turn. We're going to use this as a cul-de-sac. And most people go, well, I tried it and it didn't work. No, it was a cul-de-sac. It's not an excuse to quit. Sometimes it's great. You'll run down that rabbit hole, right? You'll slide full on, and it comes out the other end, and it's been a fantastic 20-minute victory. True 20-minute excellence.
Sure.
But just if you get a little bit into it and something doesn't feel right, that's telling you, hey, it's like a speed bump, a yield sign. It'll show you as much about where you don't want to go as where you do want to go. Yes?
No, absolutely. And, when things don't work out, you can use those as lessons for other time.
Well, that's a good point. I would say everything works out. Everything works out. People go, well, it didn't work out for me. That's one way, right? One mind, a billion ways to use it. That's one way to looking at it. It didn't work out, but as long as you're still here, if it didn't kill you, it told you how not to do it again. I think, what is that? Well, I don't know if it's a myth or if it's true or however, but you hear this all this time that Edison, it took him like 1,009 times.
Oh, yeah.
All right?
It's a great
He's not going to say that time 87 was the wrong turn. Time 954, because without those, he wouldn't have been in a position. He wouldn't know what avenue to avoid as he moved towards the creation of the light bulb, right? So don't look at it as it not working out. Don't look at it as a dead end. Say to yourself, okay, groovy, it's still evidence, right? If you investigate a crime scene and you think you have the suspect, you're almost certain person A did it. But then you find evidence that's like, you know what? Person A couldn't have done it. I've got this evidence over here that says it wasn't person A. Is that evidence a mistake?
No, it's evidence.
But it's evidence. You got to use it.
Yeah.
You got to use it. So now you got to go, okay, this says that this wasn't the bad guy or the bad girl, right? Now you go where that evidence leads. Same with 20-minute victories. You're going to get into it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it still works because it's a cognitive cairn. It's showing you this isn't at this particular time. Because as you get better at this, Bob, you'll find that sometimes the cul-de-sacs have a shelf life. At this particular moment of your life, that's not the right avenue, right? Because that's what adventure means. Something about to happen. So in this particular moment, today, which is what, like the 5th of April, you might come across some evidence, right? A fingerprints of providence. You might come across something of that doesn't work today, but when you kind of remember it, it might work next week. You may not have done some of the track work. You may not have laid some of the foundation for that particular fingerprint of providence to make sense in this moment. So you kind of file it, you kind of remember it, and then see if a week from now, a month from now, 6 months, a year from now, you go, oh wow, that's right. I remember that cul-de-sac, and you'll find that it dovetails and you're able to use it in this moment. So you magnify the moment. It's all about staying in the now, in the present. That's where the evidence comes. And it's been my experience, that's where the still small voice comes. So no dead ends. No, it didn't work out. Everything works out even when it doesn't.
So be present in the present.
Be present in the present. Absolutely. Magnify the moment. Pay attention to what you're doing. I call it inner orienteering, right? If you're out in the backcountry and you have a map and a compass, you're always orienteering. You're taking what the terrain throws at you, right? Looking at your map and figuring out how to move through the next obstacle, the river, the mountain, the crevasse, the thick, the thick grove of trees, whatever it is. Well, inner orienteering works with the mind. There'll be things that you have to negotiate. It's all narrative. So there'll come a time where you have to watch what you say to yourself. Remember? Because one of the things that derails us faster than anything else is our own narrative. By saying, oh, I tried this, it didn't work. Oh, I got here and that didn't work. Oh, well, this was a little uncomfortable. That wasn't uncomfortable enough. That I really liked. That I didn't like. It's all narrative. It's all how you represent it to yourself. And as you tap in to your superhuman status and your all-natural being, then you have the true arbiter, right? You have that being that's able to judge the evidence. Just like relationships. Oh, I'm in a bad relationship. Well, how's your relationship with yourself? It's been my experience, again, that if you're in a bad relationship, chances are pretty good it's the relationship with yourself that's causing you to be in that bad relationship. Because the human mind is not built to stay with a bad trade. Right? It's just not built that way. But human beings, when I talk all the time about being impeccably human, I'm sick and tired of people maligning, right? The character assassination of the human being, the human mind. Because it's not put here to be unhappy, unsuccessful, unfulfilled. It's put here to put its superhuman through its ultimate paces, use all of its natural resources, have the loving relationships that it wants, have the friendships that it wants, have the fulfillment, have the happiness, have the professional success. That's what we're here to do. And if you haven't done it to date, and you're just listening to our show now, if you haven't done it, God love you, right? Doesn't mean you have to beat up on yourself. Doesn't mean you can't start right now. Hang up, stop listening. I'd be happier if you stop listening, although, it'll be an action-packed 2 minutes here. See if I can work my own sliders, right? But stop right now. If that's what your gut tells you, if that's what your instinct, if that's what your spine says, you got to do it. You got to do it. Because I'm on the side of your authentic self. I'm on the side of the real you. Not the inauthentic you with all the entourage, all the minds, all the baloney that goes on in the mind. I want the real you. And probably being a little more honest than I thought I would be, but now I'm just kind of on a roll with it. I'm being very selfish in a way by asking the people listening to channel their inner superhuman. I want a future that my kids can look forward to. I want a future that your kids can look forward to. If you're listening to my voice, you can be sure I want a future that your kids, your grandkids, that you can look forward to. And the only way to right this ship, just watch the news. The news is full of stories and examples of people that aren't channeling their all-natural being. So in trying to get more people, I joke all the time, I want 780 million people, right? I just that percentage.
Sure.
I want the tipping point, the 10% to be people that channel their all-natural being and their superhuman status, because I think the future is going to be a lot brighter, not just for you, right? But the universe is counting. The world is counting on you. You, right there. You listening, right there. The universe is counting on you to release your superhuman, to release your all-natural being, because that's what's going to guarantee our future. You look anywhere now, all the anger, all the violence, all the misplaced aggression, it's because the world is full of people that aren't channeling their superhuman status, that aren't compassionately, both inwardly and outwardly, tapping into their all-natural being. So I'm being selfish. I want a future that every one of my friends, my family, that people listening can believe in. And the only way to do that is for you to start right now. What can I do? You start channeling your all-natural being, because the universe and the future is counting on you being a superhuman.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with that. I think people need to stop watching some of the news. I think that kind of,
All right, ladies and gentlemen, everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with us right here on IPM Nation. And we're going to see if I can channel my inner superhuman and get the show closing and the slider. Yeah, I got a lot of moving buttons here. So thank you so very much. Don't forget, check us out, IPM Nation. IPMNation.com/Brian Brawdy for the rebroadcast of the show. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning. Thank you so very, very much for hanging out with us. We'll catch up again in the morning.
You've been listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy.
Join us live every Monday through Friday, 7 to 8 a.m. Eastern.
Also, check us out around the clock at allnaturalbeing.com.
Until then, always remember to bring your own bold.